Good morning, upper sixth. So, first weekend of study leave. I'm sure you are already revising this morning. Read this morning in the news. We've done a case study on Shein and should the UK government accept multinational corporations. I read this morning and thought about the impact of multinational corporations. This has not been tested before, not directly. So who knows your luck in a raffle, hey? You might get one on this year. So we're going to go through the theory. There's a lot of it. Impact of multinational corporations. We'll do it all in context with Shein. There's the original article from the Times if you want to go and read it from them. If not, you can read it here. So this is a document that we've sent out to you before, and it obviously has all the questions in it from 2016 to 2023. You can download it from the link down the bottom if you want. When you go into that document, there is a blank section here. Now, this doesn't mean that this unit has not been tested before. It sort of has, but in other sections. So when we looked at the Pfizer question to do with the Irish economy, we know that sort of covers this sort of thing. So it's the same sort of technique, but we'll have a quick look through this. There's lots of sections in this unit that could be tested, so I think it's important that you revise all of them. So here is the bullet points from the standards, and you can see there's a lot here. Yeah, so especially quite controversial stuff to do with transfer pricing, for example, which we could look at for country as a production location or market, but we won't look at those units for this really. But we need to touch on some of the basics first. Here is the article. It is long. You need to pause the video. You need to read this. Look through this in context with the bullets that you've just seen on the previous slide. So if you need to go back a bit, write some notes or get your notes in front of you, then it's fine. Look through for impact on economy. Think about macroeconomic goals, which I'll remind you of in a sec, and think about the opportunity cost of if they didn't list. Okay, they're choosing the UK by all accounts. It's 53 billion quid, and it's clearly something that the UK economy could do with as well. This might help with reputation of London and lots of other things that we've spoken about in class. Right, pause the video, read the article. Hopefully you pause the video. If not, I'm sure I'll give you lots of context as we go. So, first of all, a quick reminder of some of the basics. We need to know the formula, the components of GDP, because it helps us to think about the impact on economies. So if this was assessed the likely impact on the local and national economy of this, we've seen that type of question in another unit before, then you can't just say impacting GDP. GDP is not just GDP. These are the components of it. So a quick revision here. This will then link into our circular flow of income. This is obviously a poster we have on a wall in our classroom. And we know that firms employ people. They then pay those people, funnily enough, with wages, dividends to shareholders, maybe interest on loans if my bank is loaning companies money. There's obviously profits that go to some shareholders, which will be through dividends, and obviously I might own some buildings, so I might get income through rents. That money comes into the home, and basically I then spend it with firms. The more money that firms spend on wages and their supply chain's very important, especially for this unit, well, most units actually. But if you think about it, if they're spending money, these guys have got money, they're spending money. If these guys cut back, they relocate to another country, for example, there's less money going into the economy and the whole economy could shrink. You will then think about other things that are quite important. Firms will pay taxes on profits. This goes to government. Households will pay taxes on their income, capital gains tax if they're selling buildings, those sorts of things. Governments then want to spend money on stuff. Yeah, so if this was a government based, should the UK government encourage companies like Shein, which this won't be in the paper, but you might get another one. But if you think about it, the government want to spend money on stuff, and if they don't have enough money from taxes, they're going to borrow it or not spend it. We've got a Labour government probably coming in soon, and I'm absolutely sure, based on their history before, that they will borrow to spend to make us all feel better. And then maybe 8 years worth of Labour government, the Conservatives will come back in, and they'll basically will go to austerity again. We shall see, even though the Conservative government have borrowed bucket loads, but that's another video. So if you think about this, this is the circular flow in the economy. Then we've got our imports versus exports, and clearly if we're exporting more than we import, this helps the economy to grow. If we are importing more than we export, well actually there's a contraction there because of net exports. All of this fits in to our model that we're talking about here when we're thinking about the impact of multinational corporations. So back to the GDP formula, well, the C is private consumption. It's me and you buying stuff. Okay, the more we buy, the more the economy grows. If I'm a bit scared, if I think there's a recession, if I think my interest rates might go up, if I think I'm at risk of redundancy, I will save more than spend. Economy shrinks. I is capital investment. It's the investment by companies on stuff. It might be Shein building a new head office. It might be Shein investing in factories if they were going to start making clothes over here. Government spending, obviously mentioned. That's our roads, that's our schools, that's giving money. So when the government gives a subsidy to the electric car industry, that money needs to come from somewhere, and that's normally the taxpayer. Then we're talking about those net exports, and you'll see the X, so obviously we don't use E, but the little x and the little m for imports. Yeah, so that will give us our net exports. Thinking about macroeconomic objectives, if this is a country-based question, then we need to think about the targets of the government. Well, these are the targets. Clearly, we now know what GDP is, and we understand the different components that could influence this. Yeah, so it's quite important. When those high-paid technical financial lawyer jobs start to be in shorter supply because Shein moved to London, they're going to need help with the IPO paperwork. Maybe there's more money in their local economy. So those workers pop into Pret and buy some lunch. Maybe Pret need more staff. Okay, think about the wider economy, not just the direct employment. Full employment does not mean that everyone's in work. It just means low unemployment. I think if we're around about the 4-5%, I think everyone's relatively happy. If it gets much below that, then suddenly we've got labour shortages, and then think about the type of worker. If we're talking about highly skilled lawyers in IPOs, well, they're not going to be unemployed waiting down the job centre for a job. So if you see low unemployment rates, just remember they're low, which is good because lots of people have got money to spend in the economy, hopefully, but it's bad because you might have to pay higher wages to get staff. Price stability, we don't want inflation to go too crazy. We've seen that in recent years. We've done that to death in class, so I won't talk about it. And this is the balance of payments, that equilibrium between imports and exports. Financial stability, the governments really want to be on their targets, hey? Because if they keep overspending on lovely projects like HS2 and stuff like that, then we're going to have problems, okay? Because the money still needs to come from somewhere. They can only print so much of it. And clearly equality is a big thing. So thinking about this in context with this question, it will come up if we're thinking about the impact on the local economy in the UK. Well, the IPO is not probably directly going to create low-skilled jobs, even though indirectly it might, because Pret might need more staff. And yes, the environment drops in there as well. This is a key priority. And let's face it, Shein are shipping clothes around the world on jumbo jets. maybe their sweatshop antics and environmental impact, hopefully coming to the UK, maybe we can influence that. Maybe we just don't care, by the way, because it brings loads of money into the economy. You can decide. So, back onto the bullet points. I've put some pictures up there of some of the jobs, for example. Down the bottom, we've got the city where we might find lots of those tech jobs and finance and lawyer jobs. And obviously, we've got the London stock market, who will be abuzz with a stock market flotation of 53 billion, and they will be hoping, fingers crossed, that more companies like this will come to the London Stock Exchange. This is very good for the London Stock Exchange. Our stock exchange has been growing slowly over the years as lots of companies go to New York, for example, and we need to think why they do that. Well, if we get more people come here, there's more opportunity for growth, then maybe the consumers, as in the people that buy shares, are more happy to buy London shares. This puts the share price up in the London Stock Exchange and my pension pot goes up. Okay? Hopefully. Fingers crossed. So first of all, let's look at labour, wages, working conditions and job creation. And in context with the case study, we're thinking about the types of jobs. Don't just say jobs. Don't just say workers. You've got to think about what type of jobs are here. So I've mentioned in here, we've got finance, we've got marketing. Hopefully one of our big marketing agencies will pick up a Shein contract. And I've mentioned some of the other jobs like lawyers, but also you would hope in the future that we could have some more distribution jobs. Now, Shein are rapidly growing in the UK. There is a link here, by the way, not just to the IPO, but if the IPO raises the profile of Shein, maybe Shein sell more stuff in the UK. This might, in the longer term, create jobs in the logistics sector, maybe in retail. We'll see what happens. Okay, and if you look into the Shein model, they have lots of third-party providers that sell through their platform, a bit like Amazon, where you buy something from Amazon and you don't actually get it from Amazon. So that sort of thing's there as well. It could actually help our SMEs in the fast fashion industry. Who knows? Local businesses, we're going to be looking for them. So that's my link into small fashion. So small fashion could benefit from this, but also small fashion could actually struggle. Shein have got massive economies of scale of bulk purchase. Their branding, their advertising campaign is very much gone viral. So actually, this could make it harder for some of our fashion companies in the UK. But sometimes competition is good, hey? So local communities, we're thinking of the areas around where the jobs are being created. This, and I've mentioned warehouses there, they could be anywhere in the UK. So you've got to think, where are the jobs going to be created? Is this going to create extra competition for labour? Labour costs go up, maybe. And maybe there's extra demand for office space. Well, there's a massive shortage for there's oversupply of office space as more people are working from home. This could actually help my pension because unfortunately I have some property in it. So on to the second part, and there's loads here. So make sure your notes are up to date, please. Well, we understand FDI flows. We understand that Shein is a Chinese company, and they will bring lots of money, hopefully, with them into the UK. That directly helps that circular flow of income, GDP, because the I in GDP is obviously some of that capital investment. So this could help boost the economy, as well as those jobs in that circular flow, remember. Hopefully, we will be exporting more. This helps our balance of payments, that net export X minus M formula. They're very big in technology. So, we've got a good reputation in the UK for the tech industry. So you should think, is this going to help them or will it help us? Well, it might just create more tech jobs. This could be very good for those high paid jobs in London and hopefully the surrounding area as well. Consumers, well, You might have more choice. We might get lower prices if we decide to shift to Shein. Maybe if more people shift to Shein, this puts pressure on other retailers, and then we see prices either stay where they are or reduce. Maybe. We'll see. But then again, are all customers after cheap clothes? They might be more concerned about the overall welfare of the supply chain. Thinking about the business culture, without going too much into it, they've got some bad reputation for their supply chain. Maybe we see some of those practices echoing in the UK. Just because they're coming to the UK does not mean their culture will change. And then we need to think about tax revenues. Well, if you think about should the UK welcome companies like Shein, well, if they're not here, we get no tax, yeah, or next to none, because they're very good. You'll see that from a previous essay we did on not paying a lot of import tariffs because of the value of the products that come through customs. And if we think about if they were located here, trading here, hopefully we'll get more corporation tax from that. We shall see how it all pans out. I'm sure we'll hear a lot about this in the press. So that's a whirlwind tour of the theory. So we should look at a question. I thought I'd go for a 12 marker here so we can practice our conclusions with a little bit of a MOPS in there. And we'll get, first of all, going to plan it, aren't we? So likely impact, clearly this is our hook, and of, on. Okay, so we're always looking for those ofs and ons or something similar. So of its decision to list on the London Stock Exchange, I'm going to expect to see some reference to the IPO in there. I'm not going to define this because actually this is about the labour market in the UK. So I'm going to put a K next to that, which is probably how I'm going to start my essay. So the hook is likely impact of listing on the local economy. So we know that this is our second part of the hook. Okay, so I shall draw a little line through that, and then when I come to my conclusion, I will quickly, before writing the first line, flick back to the question, likely impact on the local labour market in the UK. It's likely to be positive because it's creating new jobs, full stop. Probably just a bit of a repeat, but at least it answers the question. And then I'm going to justify in context, and hopefully in context with the future, because I can get a bit of MOPS in there as well without writing too much. At this stage, I probably wouldn't have read this case study. I know I asked you to read it earlier, but I probably wouldn't have in the real exam because I will just look at the question, look at the definition that needs to define, and then I'm going to write it. The local labour market refers to the employment environment within specific geographic area and covers the availability, demand and characteristics of jobs and workers. It's a bit of a gobful, but I'm looking for geographic area. I'm looking for types of jobs, possibly types of workers, and also thinking about those workers that might not benefit from this. The local labour market is not just about all those jobs being created. It might be the jobs that are not created. Okay, we could actually miss this macroeconomic target of equality in the labour force. Okay, so I've put the structure into the thing. You obviously wouldn't write this, but for those of us that are practicing our P paragraphs, you could be new lower sixth to this, or even fifth form, getting ahead for your business A level, hey? Shein's decision to list in London is likely to increase investment and growth in the local tech and e-commerce sectors. So we've got some application in there, even though this is my point. So we've got some app. Then we're going to explain. Now, we're looking for roughly 5 chains of argument, but 5 is not the magic number. It's really just double checking you've got those extended chains of argument. By choosing London for its IPO, Shein brings its business and potential for partnerships with local firms. Okay, linked to the question, including tech firms, logistics companies. The presence of this major international e-commerce application firm could stimulate local innovation and enhance the growth of future associated industries. improving London's position as a global financial hub. So we're talking about local labour markets. This could be very good for London, by the way, and that's why the press will get very excited over this in the coming months. And then we need to make sure that we've used the case study. Now, this has already used the case study, but I do like to have this could be interpreted as, for example, in the case study, and it also adds another chain of argument. And for a 12 marker, we are really looking for those extended arguments. For example, when Alibaba listed in New York, there was a significant increase in investments in local tech startups. So up here it's talking about the benefits. Down here is evidencing the benefits. I'm not leaping to a conclusion. I'm not inventing my own reality. So it's important we do that. However, growth might only be in specific sectors like technology and finance, potentially overlooking other sectors such as manufacturing and retail. Remember, the question is local labour market, so we're not just going to focus on those sectors that are benefiting. Great, however, and you can drop that in from your own knowledge. There's nothing wrong with that for a 12 marker. On to our second point, Shein's IPO could lead to job creation in these sectors. Okay, so over here we're talking about investment and growth and stimulating. Over here we're directly talking about those job creation in those sectors. The process of listing on the stock market. Now, this up here is talking about job creation. This is now linking it nicely into the process of IPO. So over here we're talking about obviously the generic stuff of listing, and now we're bringing in our knowledge of IPO. Up here I put the K next to it because I needed to demonstrate, I think, a little bit of understanding of IPO, even though this is clearly about the labour market. It's a 12 marker, it's meant to be difficult. Make sure you look out for that type of hints and tips in the question. So complex requires extensive legal and financial services. The demand for local experts in finance, law and consultancy, KPMG, PwC, EY, Accenture will all be very excited over this. It is likely to increase as they engage in IPO preparation, compliance and ongoing report requirements. Now, all of you have memorised the sort of expensive processes behind IPO, and if you've forgotten, this paragraph helps you revise that as well. According to the case study, see how we like to signpost the examiners here. IPOs typically involve teams of lawyers, accountants and financial advisors, leading to job creation in these sectors. A little bit of repeat of the start of it, but it does justify what we are trying to say. However, these might be predominantly high-skilled jobs which might not benefit the wider labour market, especially lower-skilled workers who might not qualify for such roles. Highly skilled workers, unfortunately, the people that aren't highly skilled might not benefit from this. Not directly, unless they're getting a tip in prep. Overall, Shein's decision to list in London is likely to have a positive impact on the local labour market. So all this is a rework of the question, and we would have flicked back and we would have made sure that we directly answer the question. So that's answered. It's not justified. I like the word without if we can. You can't always consider the alternative, but with this one we definitely can. It's quite easy. Well, we're considering them listing. The alternative is not listing. Without Shein's IPO in London, the local labour market might miss out on potential growth in high-skilled employment opportunities. So it is a slightly future-orientated justification. This was written under timed conditions. I'm a Dalmatian, so you're probably better at typing. So you should think, is this a good enough MOPS? Well, it's a bit future orientated and it considers the alternative. I'm not sure it's the best MOPS ever written. Now, if we were thinking about this from the perspective of is it perfect or is it level 4? Because we know we're not aiming for perfection. We think about it here, and all of this up here is pretty okay. I'm not going to list these for you. You can read. But if we pop down to this, is it balanced? Well, yeah, of course it's balanced. Even the conclusion is balanced. We're considering them not listing. Wide ranging, well, that's where our 5 chains of argument come in, hey? With our coherent, logical up here, wide-ranging arguments is more than 2. Well, we know we've got more than 2. We've got howevers on both of those paragraphs, and we've got a little bit of another argument as our justification. I think it's contextualised to death, which is great. There's no quant in there, which is a bit lazy of me, but it's not using the data type question, so I'm not going to bother doing that really, because I'm writing fast enough under time conditions, finishing 100-mark papers. Competing arguments, well, labour market, we've looked at high skilled and low skilled, I think so. Leading to a supported judgment, I think so. Now, is it the best answer ever? I don't think so. Is it mid towards the top of level 4? Probably. Let's give it a 10, shall we? Let's give it a 10 and just presume that the examiner's not quite sure, and maybe it's a 12. I don't think it's an 8. 10's happy. Hopefully that's okay. If you're my students and you want to write your own version of that, just ping it through, or you can book an appointment in my diary and we will meet up soon. Looking forward to revision leave. Good luck, everyone.